Okay, so we're going to do another problem solving by factoring, but this time there are several issues going on. Remember when they're saying solving by factoring, that means we're going to wind up using the zero factor property. And that means if you have one side set equal to 0 and the other side factored, you can set each factor equal to 0. So if we're looking at our equation, the right-hand side is already 0. Fantastic. But this left-hand side is just a mess. So the first thing we're going to do is rewrite this in descending order. Remember, descending order says that we start with our highest exponent, which is our 10t cubed, and work our way down. So that negative 30t squared is going to come next, and then minus 40t. The 40 was negative, which is why we have minus. You may be looking at this problem and thinking, those numbers look gross, there's t's everywhere. When you see stuff going on in common in all of your terms, that's probably because you got a GCF hanging out. So normally the nicest part of the GCF to find is whether or not you have a variable. So you look at each term. Does each term have a variable? In this case, yes. So we can include it in our GCF. If not every term had a variable, we would not include it in the GCF. We're going to have t to the first in our GCF because we can't go any higher. Your GCF is a greatest common factor. It's what everybody has in common. It's what everybody can do to chip in. So that 40t only has t to the first. He can't give a t squared, so we're not going to take it away. To find the number part of your GCF, start with your smallest coefficient, your smallest number in all of your terms. In our case, it's 10. And you see if the other terms are divisible by 10. 30 is divisible by 10. 40 is divisible by 10. And remember, you can always double check. We're not going to judge you if you use a calculator to double check, especially on a test or quiz or an exam. So it's okay. We're going to have a GCF of 10t. This next line you can skip if you're comfortable with it, but I am going to go through and show the work on how to take out that GCF again. Essentially, that means that we are going to divide each of our terms by 10t. So my 10t is going to come out front. You're like, out front of what? We're going to open up a parenthesis. So my first one, 10 divided by 10 gets us 1. And we have a t cubed. We're taking a t away, which means that we have t squared. Negative 30, or sorry, let's bring down the negative. There we go. 30 divided by 10 we know is 3. We had a t squared, but we're taking a t away, which means that we'll have t to the first. Bring down my minus. 40 divided by 10 gets me 4, and notice that my t's cancel out. So I can go ahead and close it. Now, some of you may be wondering why I wrote the 1 in front of the t squared. You can get rid of it, completely up to you. Either one is fine. Mostly we will see just t squared because we don't write the 1 coefficient, but it's not wrong to do so. Now, we still are set equal to 0, but we're not going to do the zero factor property yet. And that's because we have to check this parenthesis on the inside here, because there's a t squared. We may be able to factor it further. So if we're looking at this t squared minus 3t minus 4, we already took out the GCF. which means that we can identify A, B, and C. In this case, A is 1, B is -3, and C is -4. You may be wondering what happened to that 10t? Well, think of that 10t like your sibling. You take them to the mall with you because your parents say you have to. But really, you're going to hang out with just your friends, which is the parenthesis. You're excluding your sibling from the group. You tell them, hey, go do your own thing. We'll meet up with you later. So you ignore each other until you're ready to go home. We're just going to concentrate on us and our friends, which is why A is 1, B is -3, C is -4. We're going to be looking for a product of A times C, which is 1 times -4, and 1 times -4 is -4. And we're going to be looking for a sum of B, which is -3. If I start with just the numbers that they originally gave us, A and C, I have 1 and -4. They multiply to be -4. Remember, product is multiplication. And 1 plus -4, when we do the sum, the addition, we get -3. That is the sum for which we were looking, which means that we found our magic numbers. Remember, after you find your magic numbers, we can go ahead and start our parentheses. This time I had a variable of t, so I'm not going to write x. I have a t in one and I have a t in the other. Since my 1 is positive, I'm going to put +1. Since my 4 is negative, I'm going to have -4. For those of you using the bottoms up method, remember you always have to divide by A, which means that we'll be dividing by 1. And that doesn't really get us anywhere because when we reduce these, we still wind up with t plus 1 times t minus 4. Since we completely factored the inside of the parentheses, we know that we're done factoring because t and 1 have nothing in common, no GCF, and t and -4, nothing in common, no GCF, which means that we're ready to go home. We're ready to go back to 0. Okay. So if I were to continue from here, t plus 1, t minus 4 equal to 0, I would have t plus 1 equals 0, t minus 4 equal to 0. Subtract 1 from both sides. I wind up with t is equal to -1. Add 4 to the other side, and t is equal to 4. Now, I know some of you are freaking out right now, and you should be. For those of you not freaking out, that means you went all the way home with just you and your friend, and you left your sibling at the mall. That GCF that we took out, that we said, hey, we'll see you when we're ready to go home. You need to include him all the way through because it's 10t times the t plus 1 factor times the t minus 4 factor. So don't forget to set your 10t equal to 0. You need to divide both sides by 10 to get the t by itself. We wind up having t is equal to 0 divided by 10 is 0. And there we have our third answer. Our exponent was 3, which means that we should have 3 answers. When we got home with only 2 answers, the red flags went up. You need to remember your sibling, that GCF. Always pay attention to what you take out of the parentheses.